On this week's episode, we're going to talk about me having so many broken bones and injuries in such a short period of time that my mom almost went to jail. And I'm also going to talk about how I got this hand stuck to a floor and how it had to come off. Crazy. That and more. Thank you for tuning in to Chasing Dreams, Finding Roadblocks. I am your host, Brian Angel. Today we're going to talk about injuries and broken bones. It started early in life. What I mean by that is, at the age of 7, I discovered something that would change my life forever. I discovered girls. And so I thought I would impress them by making this nice, awesome jump. You know, if you look at the jump from Napoleon Dynamite, where he's like, you got like 3 feet that time. This had no, that wasn't what this was. That was unimpressive. This jump was impressive. So the sidewalk ran, east to west, and I decided I was going to go in my dad's garage. What I found was a few really horrible boards and some weird light box. And so this ramp I put on the sidewalk. Well, the girls lived on the other half of the block, so I had to build this. Not by my house. I built this ramp in front of everybody else's house. And it just so happened, there was a neighbor that we had that had this ginormous oak tree. This thing was huge. I mean, I don't even think at the size I am now, it would take 3 of me to hug this thing in order to get the circumference of this tree. So I put this ramp on this sidewalk. So I went into my dad's garage. I got some boards, this really horrible light box. It was like wood, but I remember it being really light because I remember thinking, how am I carrying this kind of stuff? So anyway, I get over there and I set this box up and then I put these boards on there. Now, hindsight is 2020. When I look back at it, I'm thinking, what was I thinking? But at that time, I know what I was thinking. Ooh, these girls are going to think I'm cool. Yeah, y'all know where I'm going next, right? So I got this box. This ramp went straight up like this. It was like the boards were really short. So the ramp was it was crazy. So I ended up going down the block, taking a test run. And then somewhere in that test run, I thought, I'm going to make them even pay more attention to me. And I decided to put a playing card in my spokes, because apparently that makes you cooler, faster, and sound like a Harley, I guess. I'm not sure. But I do remember that I felt pretty cool. So what happened was, I go flying down the sidewalk, pedaling my little heart out. And when I hit that ramp, it pushed the box and moved it sideways. So at 7 years old, I launched off, and instead of going down the sidewalk, I hit that tree at full force like you wouldn't believe. 7 years old. And I broke both of my legs. Let's just say the girls weren't impressive. Or impressed at all. They thought I was... Matter of fact, if it did anything, they said I was stupid. And so that didn't work. But there were some other girls down the street. They thought, oh, poor Brian, he's in some casts, this and that. So that's when I started thinking, casts equals sympathy. Stupid idea. So at 7 years old, I was in casts for what seemed like an eternity. And then, as I was starting this docuseries here, I was going through some old pictures of me with my mom. And it was crazy because I had my arm in a cast in one picture, and I don't even remember why I had that arm in a cast. And then I found another picture was dated 6 months later, and I had the other arm in a cast. I can't even remember what those were from. I just know that I found two pictures with two arms that were broken at two different times. And to get into why I did some of the stuff I did, we're gonna flash forward a little bit now. So I got 4 brothers. Now, like we've said before, I'm the Oreo cookie. I'm the middle. I am the favorite. I'm the most loved. Everybody knows that. My brothers know that. They hate me. They're, whatever. So one of my older brothers decides he's going to teach me the law of physics. What's in motion stays in motion, or, maybe the law of gravity. And so he tells me that if I jump off the garage roof with an umbrella, I will float down like Mary Poppins. So I get to the peak of the garage. Now, we had this makeshift basketball. We like I said, we didn't have a lot of money. So our basketball hoop was didn't even have a net on it. It was just this round bar with this ginormous piece of plywood that was stuck to the top, that stuck over the top of the peak. That was our backboard. My brother talks me into jumping off over the top because my parents weren't home and their cars weren't parked in the driveway. So I get up there and I climb over to the top where I can get down, and I'm hanging on to this thing, and I jumped. Now, when I jumped, you're talking, that's got to be good 20 foot, maybe 18 foot, somewhere in there. The umbrella never, like, you see in the cartoons, like Wile E. Coyote, it folds up or anything else. No, it stayed open like it should, but it didn't slow me down at all. And I hit, now we didn't have pavement, we had gravel, like 22A gravel. If you know what that is, that's clay and gravel mixed. It's hard. It's like hardened. And I hit that and broke my collarbone. So you would think I would have learned my lesson. Get out of that, take all that. We're talking maybe a year or so later. Same brother decides he's going to talk me into jumping off the roof again. But this time I was a little bit smarter. This time I decided not to jump off the top. No, that would be death. So what I decided is I'm going to jump off the corner. Now, I didn't just jump off. He talked me into, if I jumped off with a ginormous garbage bag, it would act like a parachute. And I'm asking you all at home right now, do you think it acted like a parachute? Because I'm going to tell you, it did not. I hit the ground so hard in a totally different part of the yard that I broke my arm. Now, this is just, it's not that I'm dumb. It's just, back then, and we'll get into this later episodes, I was like a people pleaser. I just had to have everybody like me, whether it was my brothers or anybody else. I did dumb stuff because I figured that's how people liked me, So now I got a broken arm. It's went from broken legs to, 2 broken arms. Now that I'm sitting here, I do remember one of the casts that I said in that picture earlier. I hit my arm. I got mad at one of my brothers or something. And instead of slamming my fist down, I remember now, I slammed my elbow and I fractured my elbow. That's one of those pictures. I fractured my elbow just because my mom had this big, thick, like oak table. And so that might be one of the casts from that. So, now I jump off. My brother talks me into jumping off the roof, not once, but twice. So, I'm not going to do that again. So anyway, we move forward. So some of the other stuff that I did now, when I turned 14 years old, my oldest brother, he gave me a 125 Yamaha dirt bike. Now, I was such a small person that I literally had to use a box to get on this thing. So I had to take off from the box. There was I was tipping. So now this is 14. Now between the ages of like breaking my arm, probably that 10 years old, 11 years old to 14, I ended up taking this motor. The very first day I got it, I went out and there's this ginormous place where you could ride dirt bikes across from our house, and there was a hill. Now the hill is a pretty good sized hill, but you could see where all the traffic was going over the top. So all my friends are like, well, let's see how far we can jump out. We're always watching motocross to see how far. So I get this thing at 14 years old doing like 60 miles an hour. And the reason I know that is there's like a little speedometer on this thing. And it's like 55, somewhere 50 between there anyway. I hit that. And the crazy part about it was this, is the back seat had hit me super hard in the butt, causing me to go over the top of the handlebars. And I remember now I am literally flying through the air in front of the bike, and the bike is still upright. It's not doing anything weird. It's just following me. And all of a sudden I fell faster than this bike and I hit so hard. I mean, I was wearing a helmet, that safety first. And so I'm laying on the ground in excruciating pain. I knew I broke something because I heard it. And so I am laying there screaming in this helmet. My bike, I heard my bike hit. And I got 5 of my buddies out there. We're all, we're all like that 13, 12, 14 area, They come running and I'm thinking they're screaming because they're going to come check on me. They didn't run and check on me. They all ran past me, and as they're running past me, all I hear them yelling is the bike okay? I didn't get my turn. They didn't care about me whatsoever. They just wanted to make sure the bike wasn't broken, so they got their turn. Problem is we all had to leave because Brian broke his other collarbone. So this is kind of like becoming, a thing. So I had broken so many bones, literally in such a short period of time. I had shattered my knee. We'll talk about that later on. And I had broken my legs so many times, my arms, collarbones, to the point where I had brought in one of the times with my mom, and I had broken my arm again, same place. And so when she was in there, we're talking like I had a broken bone like 3 times in less than like 8 months. It was a short period of time, and I just kept breaking bones to the point where my mom walks in and the first word she says to the doctor is, can we put him in a full body cast this time? And all of a sudden the doctor escorted her out of the room. They were thinking child abuse, like that. The reason why I got so many bones that I'm getting broken is I'm getting beat up at home. Now, it would have been funny if I'd have said, yeah, but then, hindsight's 2020, because later on you still have to live with these people for a while. So it's a good thing I didn't. But so she was taken off into another room and interrogated, and they were calling the cops because the doctor figured the reason why I was having so many broken bones is I was getting beat up at home. And so, that's kind of where the injuries come in. It just kind of got so bad that this didn't stop as a youth. Dumb stuff kept happening over the years. So let's flash forward a little bit. It got to the point that when I graduated high school, I got married, and right after high school, and I bought a fixer-upper house. So I was constantly, on the roof, in the attic, whatever. And so I happened to think it was really cool. I bought my first 16 penny nailer, and I put a bunch of nails in it that had serrades in it, because what I was doing is I was putting flooring down and I wanted to make sure it wasn't going to come back up. And so anyway, I had drywall delivered, and they had put it in the front door, but they had stuck it on half of my flooring. So I had this 3/4 inch flooring, like OSB, but the back corner was like probably about this much of the drywall, and there were like 300 sheets in there. So I had the 16 penny nailer in this hand, and I went to lift up that thing so I could pull it out from underneath. I was on linoleum, and I had my socks on, no shoes, because I was in the house. And because where we had it, I was bringing it to the kitchen. I slipped, and when I did, I had my hand on there, and I had put that right through this hand, right through the bottom, right through that board, and now I'm stuck to the floor. Literally stuck to the floor by a nail. At first, I was in shock. Now I'm freaking out. My wife at the time, she's just like, she didn't know what to do. She calls my mom, because I live across the street from my mom and dad. I get along with my mom and dad, always have. My dad passed, but I got along with them, so I live across the street. My mom shows up. And the first thing she does is looks at my wife and says, "Get a saw." Now she's freaking out, screaming, "You're not, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" My mom ends up, it was horrible. We had to cut this board. We couldn't get that close to it because of the shaking, and it was horrible because this nail literally was a 16 penny and it had these little metal barbs that went like this. So when it went in, it wasn't coming out. And so I end up having this big 2 foot by 2 foot square board stuck to this hand and being driven to the ER. Now, I'm going to kind of give you an idea how many times I've been at the ER at this point. They started calling me Tim Allen because I had frequent flyer miles for sure there, because I was in there like, it seemed like if I wasn't there for stitches or a broken bone or something like that, it was something like a board to your hand. So I walk in, and this story I still remember was really embarrassing because how dumb are you? You're fixing something and now you got this big board. So I walk in and I got it hidden behind my back. So, and she's like, "Can I help you at the desk?" And I'm like, "Yeah, can you get this off?" And she's like, "Oh my God." So now she's like looking at it like whatever. And then she's like, "Well, we just had 2 heart attack victims come in, so you got to take a seat over there." So the part of this story that gets even more embarrassing is I grew up in church. So the waiting room is right to my, like kind of like to my left a little bit. I go in there. The first person, I mean, this place is packed. I've been in there like, which seems like a million times. And it's never usually that many people, but this day there happened to be that many people. And the first person that's inside the door is my pastor. And the first words out of his mouth is, "You know, you want to be Christ-like? You didn't have to put a nail through your hand." And then he starts making other jokes like, "You know, you only needed 5 nails on that hand. You needed to add a 6. And it was so embarrassing. So then the worst part about it is Sunday, he had to tell everybody. But, I go in and the doctor comes in. Now I got this board and the serrades. She looks at it and she's like, "We're going to have to cut the top and pull it out through the bottom. That's the only way they're going to do it." Now, I have a low pain tolerance. I pass out all the time. I was passing out like, that right there was horrible. To this day, if I could have taken that nurse, I know this is a really horrible thing to say, but it was a male nurse, and she's like, the nurse is going to come in, they're going to numb it up, we're going to cut the top off, we're going to pull it out. He walks in and says, literally looks at me, my mom's standing right there, and says, "Oh, you don't need that, be a man, we're just going to pull it out." And I thought the doctor was going to pull it out. So he cuts the top off. They get the top of the nail off, and I'm just waiting. He just yanked it. After I got done passing out, I wanted to do nothing but beat him up. Now I was just a little, still pretty scrawny at that time. And so that's the story on how I got my hand stuck to the floor. This isn't the first time. I had been at the ER where I was working on my house and went to take like this pick. I was knocking down the house. I was taking out the drywall and everything else. We were gutting it out, and it had this old plaster lat and stuff. And somehow, I have no idea, it's just a bad day or whatever else, I somehow stuck the big, huge crowbar / like pick thing that I was using right into my calf and come out the other side. And so now I get to go to the ER again. Now this is all within just like 2 months of the whole nailing my hand to the floor. So this is one of those things where now I got to go in and have this pulled out. Now this is just kind of the things. Now it's not always that kind of thing. Now we're gonna flash back to when I was about 15 years old when this one happened. So I had a friend of mine. His dad was a military supply sergeant. He called me up one day and said, "Hey, my dad has got a parachute in his closet. You want to take it out, in the field and go parachuting?" I was like, "Oh, heck yeah." So we go out, and where we live, we get bad winters, and they would put salt on the roads and stuff. So we'd have these huge piles of salt. So we got to the top of this, and I got this thing strapped to me, and I'm looking down, and it's one sheer cliff, except for at the end, where they've been taking it. And I'm I sat there and I looked down, and I remember it's about 100-foot drop, man. It was just straight down. And all I kept thinking is I could see it caving in as we were standing up there. And I kept thinking, my friends are not loyal people. They're going to end up, this is going to cave in. I'm going to get buried. They're not going to find me until completely in the middle of the winter time when I'm spread all over the roads for salt. So I thought, nah, this ain't a good idea. Plus, it was a long ways down. So I said, well, there's a tree over there. It's about, 30 to 50 foot up in that one for that big trunk. Let's go try that. So after everybody made fun of me and we slid down and we went over there, I got up there. Now I am way up there. I am so far up in this tree that I'm looking down thinking, this might not be a good idea. Problem is, once you're up there, there's nobody in this world that's a guy who's, I guess, going to back down from that once you're in that position, because you're probably never going to live it down. And when you're passive aggressive and a people pleaser and non-confrontational, you do dumb things anyway. And so I get up there and I get out to the end of this branch, and it was just bobbing like this. And I had a hold of another branch there because that helped me guide myself out there. And so I end up getting out there, and I remember bouncing and jumping out and pulling this cord. And it was almost like for a split second, I was suspended in midair because my brains didn't feel myself falling. But all of a sudden, I'm starting to pull this cord like a million times, it seemed like. And it was crazy because I hit the ground at what seemed to be 400 miles an hour. Now, I'm going to back up a little bit. That was a Sunday afternoon. So when I walked out the door at 3 o'clock, the very first words out of my mom's mouth was, you better be back here by 5. We're going to church at 6. If you're not back here by 5, you're in big trouble. Needless to say, I didn't make it back by 5. And I ended up going down and I broke my leg. I shot my bone out the side of my leg. You could see the bone, and I'm screaming. My buddy pulls it off, says, you did it wrong. I didn't really know I broke into I knew I did something real bad, but I had pants on, so I didn't really notice the bone was out at that point. But he jumps out. He gets destroyed real bad. We end up carrying each other home, which happened to be maybe a half a mile. And we get into his house, and it was crazy because his dad, was like, what are you two dummies doing? And he's like, tells him that the parachute didn't open. His dad laughed and laughed and laughed for what seemed like an eternity. Now, all of a sudden, I'm starting to see blood, coming out and in my pants and everything else. So he looks at both of us and says, you guys are idiots. That's not a parachute. That is a military half shelter. So in retrospective, my buddy got me to jump out of a tree, almost off of a 100-foot pile of stuff, with a tent that he told me it was a parachute. Now, I used to jump off a lot of stuff because I was dumb. And later on, you're going to find out when you find out when I got in the ring, I jumped off the top rope a lot. And they kept saying, you're just like this big kid, but you're just too big to do that. You're 6'3" and this and that. But so I jumped off this with a tent, with a military half shelter. So I get home and my mom is angry because it is way after 6. And so what happens is I'm like, Mom, there's something wrong. She has to take me to the ER. And now, once again, in a short period of time, I have a broken leg. Now that one was horrible because the bone, and they had to reset it. And that was so bad that that was horrible. That one hurt really bad. Resetting a bone hurts. That was the first of 2. About 2 years later, I was in school, and somebody did something, and I was just passive aggressive, and they kept bugging me. So they kept punching me in the face and then kicking me in the crotch. So I ended up punching them and forgot to close my hand. And I ended up, my cousin was standing there. I punched the guy, and then I looked at him and said, hey, I got to go home. My mom has to bring me to the ER. He's like, how do you know? And I showed him my hand. I shot the bone right out of my hand, right from this finger. It just right out. And so this is why I broke a lot of bones. This is why my mom almost went to jail. They thought she was like continuously beating me up. And so, I mean, I have so many stories of stupid stuff. Here's one. I didn't get hurt on this one, but this is kind of give you an idea what I used to do. So I'm a full blown. I'm married. I call my friend up. He's married. His wife shows up. I'm like, hey, let's see if we can get this lawnmower to go super fast. So we worked on this thing for a few weeks. We changed out motors, we changed out gears, we did this and that and everything else. We got this thing rumbling. And in my yard, I had this fence here, and then the neighbor had just bought the place. He put all new sod in, and he had a big willow tree in the middle of his yard. So, I take this lawnmower out, and we're going down the road. He takes his vehicle, and he's riding right alongside me because we're trying to find out how fast this can go. And so I'm going, and he's like, "You're doing awesome." He said at one point it was like 51, 52 miles an hour. And I'm like, okay, at that speed, this thing was shaking so bad that I thought the tires were going to come off, the whole front end. I was starting to get a little nervous because we're in the middle of the road. I'm not wearing a helmet. And all of a sudden, I decide I'm going to go up into my yard and stop. Well, if you've ever been on a lawnmower, you know that as soon as you take your foot off there's a little disc clutch that engages and stops it. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, you know what doesn't happen at like 45 to 50 miles an hour when you stop using the gas? That brake does not engage whatsoever. I went through my fence, the neighbor's fence, and hit his tree. And I slid on my stomach the whole entire length. And it's a good thing it was brand new dirt. Because, it was wet out too. So, I slid. And I stood up and I wasn't hurt. So we were all like, woo, I didn't get hurt. And but this is the kind of stuff I did. So another way I broke my leg was I had just turned 16 and I bought my first car. I paid $100 for this car and it was old. It was garbage. To tell you kind of how old and bad it was. First of all, I had a cylinder that was stuck to the side of the sidewall on the inside. And if it got wet at all, if it even so much as drizzled outside, it wouldn't work unless I ran a wire from the battery to this, and then it would start right up, and then you could take it off. And it was so bad. Just to give you another example of this. So my girlfriend, at the time, we went to like this town we were just kind of off from us, and we were on our way home, and it had rained, and there was a viaduct on the way home. And for those who don't know what a viaduct is, there was a train bridge and then there was a big dip in there, and it had rained and rained and rained and rained. This thing was full of water. And so what happened is we come flying through there like 55, 60 miles an hour. I hit that. Now, hydroplaning is one thing, and I hydroplaned a little bit. But the worst part about it is when I hit that water, we both heard this big boom, and all of the water that was under the viaduct it had bottled up and came inside my car. It blew my floorboards right out of my car. So we are both, when I say soaking wet, there was more water in my car than there was outside in the monsoon that we were in. It was soaked. And as I looked down to see what just happened, I see the highway flying past me. So I'm like holding my legs up in the air, because I'm worried that if I let my legs down, I'm going to cut my legs off or something. It was like a Flintstone car. I probably could have stopped the car if I'd put my feet down. And that's how bad the car was. But before we blew that out, I had, was really into filmmaking. So this is how I broke my leg on another occasion. I wrote this movie about my dad being a detective. And I was his son, of course, dad's son. And so he was on a case, and I was in law school. And he got too close, and there was police corruption, and there was the mob was involved, and then there was a cart. It just turned into a big thing where he gets killed, and I lose it. So I just drop out of law school, and then I ended up living in. I don't know why this was. I think we wrote the basement scene in there because my girlfriend had an open little corner in the basement of her parents' house that they allowed us to film in. So I ended up living in this basement. And so, the police chief shows up and he knocks on the door and comes out and says, "Hey, we would like to get you on the case." we know you didn't finish school or whatever, but we like that you got your dad's instinct, and I think we can really use you. So I turned around and I took him up on it, and the whole time I'm going to the graveyard at this point to say my, hey Dad, I'm gonna find the killer, and then I'm gonna, bring justice to the family, kind of thing. So I got my car parked outside the graveyard. We're actually at a graveyard in our town, and so I parked my car. Well, the bad guy, he's supposed to steal my car, and what happens is he's like 15 years old. He's never been in driver's training. He knows nothing. So the plan was this: we were going to take my car, and he was going to get in it, steal it. As I was coming from coming back to my car, he was going to steal my car, and he was supposed to run me over. Pretend run me over. And so he gets in the car and he starts moving forward. And what the plan was is, this is me. He was supposed to go stop and then edge in and touch me just enough to give me the cue that I would throw myself up onto the hood and then start rolling, and then he'd hit the gas. The momentum from the speed going forward would then roll me over the rest of the vehicle. That was the plan. That kind of went out the window when I put a 15-year-old behind the wheel of my car who had never been through driver's training and got confused on which one was the brake and which one was the gas. So instead of me, stopping, bouncing, rolling, I got smacked. He doesn't even remember how fast he was going, but he hit me. He tosses me into the graveyard, man. And I mean, he's freaking out because he thought he killed me. I'm over on the ground just laying there, just screaming because I'm thinking, oh my God, my legs are cut off. I mean, because I wasn't looking because I was freaked out. So anyway, I ended up breaking my leg, which postponed a little bit of the rest of that movie. But like I said earlier in that movie, it was kind of payback because, like I said, we had built this really tall 25 foot like scout tower, and he was in it and he was going back and forth, and that was the scout tower that the bad guys were using to their encampment to keep people like me out. So what I did is I took a big 2x12, I stuck it up alongside there, and we shot an angle with the camera that was at an angle you couldn't see this 2x12, because we knew how to make our homemade smoke bombs, and so we did. And what we did is we took a 2-liter soda bottle. So instead of like using what we were supposed to, we just packed this thing because we're like, we want smoke, we want dramatic effect, this and that. And so I get up underneath, where I'm at, and so I light this thing and I'm watching the fuse go, and I throw it. Well, when I threw it, it bounced. So it bounced over the 2x12, and the thing just goes off. You hear the loudest boom with smoke. It was so much smoke. You couldn't even see what's happening. And out of the smoke, you see him coming down like you would see in a movie, but he never flipped all the way over. He landed like on his shoulder, his head, and I thought he died right there. It was crazy. And he didn't scream, he didn't cry. He just, all we heard is a oof. And I go flying into the scene. My brother, because we were only had one camera. So my brother's sitting out there and he's got snacks. And he's just watching this whole thing unfold like this just didn't happen. Like this was all planned. We planned this. This wasn't planned. He's just eating snacks. And I come running into the scene and I look down at him and he's looking up at me. And I remember, I wish I had this video to show you. We had a flood and it ruined all this. I'd be able to play this. But in the scene, you can see me laugh because he made me laugh. Even though he broke his collarbone and he's in pain, he looks at me and goes, finish the scene. So I lean over, and I don't know why I did this, but I had my hand on him to make sure he was okay. And when he says finish the scene, some reason, I don't know what I did, but I went to move and I stuck my entire finger up his nose. And now it's like, we're talking, it's in there. I mean, there's brain, it's nasty. And so you can see me laugh because I'm trying to, because I pull it out and I'm laughing as I'm running out of the scene. And so like I said, it's kind of payback later on when he hit me with the car. So that's kind of some of the things that I did. I'll have other stories down the road where you're going to find out other bones I broke, things I did, how I got injured, why I had so many surgeries. And I'm glad you showed up. And while you're here, give a like, subscribe. Maybe leave some comments down below about something stupid you've done in the past that caused you an injury or people to laugh at you. All right, thank you.